It was a quiet evening in the village. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the narrow, dusty streets. I had been out fetching water from the well when I first saw her. She was unlike anyone I had ever seen, tall, with an ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from her very being. Her skin was a pale, shimmering silver, and her large, almond-shaped eyes held an otherworldly depth. She stood at the edge of the forest, her slender frame draped in a strange, flowing garment that seemed to ripple even without wind. At first, I thought she was a trick of the fading light or perhaps a figment of my imagination. But then she stepped forward, her movements fluid and almost unervingly graceful. She raised a hand, and though she didn't speak, I felt a desperate plea resonate within me. "Help me," she finally whispered, her voice trembling and barely audible. It was as if she was struggling to form the words, her accent unfamiliar and melodic. I hesitated, gripping the bucket of water tightly. Who was she? What was she? And why did she need my help? But her eyes, so filled with fear and urgency, compelled me to step closer. "What's wrong?" I asked cautiously. She glanced over her shoulder toward the forest, her gaze darting nervously. "They're coming," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to hide." My heart pounded. The forest had always been a source of eerie tales, a place the villagers avoided after dark. But there was something about her desperation that overrode my fear. Without another thought, I gestured toward the path leading to my home. "Come with me," I said. She nodded, her movements quick and bird-like. We hurried through the winding streets, keeping to the shadows. When we reached my modest hut, I ushered her inside and bolted the door. "Who are you?" I asked once we were safely inside. "What are you running from?" For a moment, she remained silent, her gaze fixed on the floor. Then she looked up, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I am from a place far beyond your understanding," she began. "I came here by accident, through a rift in the fabric of space. My kind is peaceful, but others from my world have followed me here. They seek to capture me and use me to open more rifts." Her words sent a chill down my spine. "Why would they want to do that?" I asked. "To conquer," she said simply. "Your world would be defenseless against them." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. It sounded like something out of a fantastical tale, but the fear in her eyes was all too real. "What can I do?" I asked. "Hide me," she said. "At least until I can find a way to close the rift and return to my world." The next few days were a blur. I kept her hidden in my home, bringing her food and water when I could. She showed me strange devices she carried, explaining in hushed tones how they worked. One was a small orb that emitted a soft blue light. "This will help me locate the rift," she said. But her pursuers were relentless. Late one night, as we sat in the dim glow of a lantern, a loud crash shattered the stillness. The door splintered and figures stepped inside. They were like her, but their eyes glowed red, and their movements were sharp and predatory. "Give her to us," one of them snarled, their voice low and menacing. "No," I said, stepping in front of her. My voice shook, but I stood my ground. "You cannot protect her," the figure said, advancing. Before I could react, the alien woman stepped forward, the orb clutched tightly in her hand. It glowed brighter and brighter until the entire room was bathed in its light. The figures recoiled, shielding their eyes. "Go," she shouted to me. "Run." I hesitated, but the urgency in her voice propelled me into action. I ran out into the night, my heart pounding. Behind me, there was a blinding flash of light and a sound like thunder. When I dared to look back, the hut was gone. In its place was a scorched patch of earth, the alien woman and her pursuers nowhere to be seen. For weeks, I searched the forest, hoping for some sign of her. But she was gone, leaving behind only memories and questions. Had she succeeded in closing the rift? Was she safe? I would never know. But I like to think that, in some way, I had helped her, even if only for a moment. Life in the village returned to normal, but I was forever changed. Whenever I looked up at the stars, I wondered about the alien woman and the vast, mysterious universe she had come from. And I hoped that, wherever she was, she had found peace. Months passed, and though the villagers whispered about the strange scorch mark left where my home once stood, they never pressed me for details. I began to rebuild my life, though a part of me felt hollow, as if something precious had been lost. Then, one evening, as I sat by the well, I noticed a faint light flickering in the forest. My heart raced as I followed the glow, weaving through the trees until I came to a clearing. There, in the center, stood a shimmering portal, its edges crackling with energy. And beside it, the alien woman. She turned as I approached, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "You came," she said, her voice filled with gratitude and relief. "I've been waiting." "What is this?" I asked, staring at the portal. "A doorway home," she explained. "I managed to repair the rift, but I couldn't leave without thanking you." I opened my mouth to respond, but she stepped forward and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You showed me kindness when you had no reason to. For that, I am forever grateful." Before I could reply, she pressed the orb into my hand. "Keep this," she said. "It will guide you if you ever find yourself lost." With one last smile, she stepped into the portal. The light intensified, and then, with a soft hum, it vanished, leaving the clearing dark and silent. I stood there for a long time, the orb warm in my palm, feeling a strange mix of loss and hope. Though she was gone, I knew our paths had crossed for a reason. And as I walked back to the village, I realized that our story, was just the beginning of something far greater than either of us could imagine.